Good evening, everybody. Hope you are all doing well under the present circumstances. Let us begin our study of the Bhagavad Gita this evening with a prayer. This is on page 242 of this book, The Universal Prayers, and the English translation is on page 243. Om Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langhayate Girim Yat Kripatamaham Vande Paramanandamadhavam. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. I offer my loving salutations to the blissful Lord Madhava, by whose grace even the mute can become eloquent and the lame can cross over mountains and reach his goal. May he bestow his grace upon us all. Om peace. May there be peace and joy in our hearts. Adhyatmika Shanti. May there be peace and harmony amongst all the beings. Adi Bhautika Shanti. May there be peace everywhere in nature. Adi Daivika Shanti. So let us continue our study of the third chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. In the last two classes, the last two meetings, we tried to understand the concept of yajna, sacrifice, as described in the third chapter by Bhagavan Sri Krishna. When this creation was brought into existence, at the time of creation, creation means infinite number of things put together and working together as one system. That's how this creation is made. Innumerable, countless things are there, big and small, in this creation. And all of them are connected together and have to work together. That interconnectedness and interdependence is an intrinsic feature of this creation. If you understand that idea, then it becomes easy for us to do all our work in the largest possible context. Whenever we do any work, we should not be thinking, how much benefit will I get from this work? And I want to benefit from this work. That should not be our thought. Our thought should be, how does this work that I am going to do will benefit, how will it benefit other beings, other people in my life, those who are connected to me immediately, like the family members and co-workers and relatives, and those who are remotely connected to me, in people in other parts of the world who are somehow contributing to my life. I should keep them also in mind when I perform some work. And do everything as an offering. Because we receive so much, we have to offer also, give also something. Everything we have has been given to us by other people and other beings and nature. So what are we giving in return? That question should be in our minds when we do some work. So that all those things we saw last time. Now when we do work in this way, everything in this way, as offering, as worship, as yajna, then what happens is the mind becomes mature. Our thinking will be in the largest terms, not in anymore in narrow personal terms, but in cosmic global terms. Our personality expands from this one little being, just me. Our personality, our thinking expand into the largest possible extent. That is the object. When that happens, the little narrow I and mine will go away from our minds. Such a person is described in verse number 17, chapter 3, verse number 17. A person who has overcome his narrow-mindedness and does all thinking, all actions in the global context, largest possible context. Such a person, what happens to him is described in the verse number 17. We studied this verse to some extent last time. We will go over it again a little bit more. So, this is the verse. Yastvatmaratirev syat atmatriptascha manavaha atmanyeva cha santushtaha tasya karyam na vidyate. Yastu atmaritiri syat. One who finds delight in one's own self, Atman. Generally, people try to find happiness in outside things, outside objects. Property, possessions, relatives, friends, children, grandchildren, spouse, and fame, position, power, in all those things. Ordinary people find happiness. But such a person, who will be later called Vidwan in the subsequent verses, one who has the knowledge of the self, his delight comes from the self within, which is the source of all delight. Even the happiness we think comes from outside objects is really coming from the self within. The sense objects are only reflecting surfaces. They provide a very poor, dim, highly distorted reflection of the joy of the self. A wise person does not bother about the reflecting surfaces. He goes to the original source of illumination, original source of light, Ananda, that is the self within. That Satchidananda is sitting in all of us, all the time. In the same way, we have seen that earlier when we were studying chapter 13, we studied this one verse, verse number 27 in chapter 13 of the Bhagavad Gita. There Bhagavan Sri Krishna says, Samam sarveshu bhuteshu tishtantam parameshwaram vinashyatsva vinashyantam yah pashyati sa pashyati. Sarveshu bhuteshu samam tishtantam parameshwaram. The Supreme Lord, who is present in all the beings in the same way. Yah pashyati sa pashyati. He who sees, he sees. A person who sees the divine presence within oneself and in others, such a person does not have to look for happiness outside. Because the happiness that comes from outside objects is highly temporary, fleeting, conditional. and it only causes disillusionment and unhappiness at the end. That we saw in chapter 5, verse 22. The disadvantages of outside happiness. So this illumined person who has reached that illumination by doing all work as yajna, his mind is purified, his selfishness is completely gone, he is totally unselfish, and he identifies his interest with the interest of the whole universe. Such a person, he finds happiness in the self within. He recognizes, experiences the divine presence within oneself, and that is the source of all joy, infinite joy. In the Taittiriya Upanishad, there is a very nice, very pleasant to study, nice section called Anandamimamsa. This has come before also in our other studies. Anandamimamsa means inquiry into the nature of joy. Where is happiness? That is a very nice section of the Taittiriya Upanishad. There it says, Etasya eva anandasya matram upajivanti. The happiness that we normally get from in our lives, from family, children, job, position, etc., etc., that is a minuscule fraction of the joy of the self. Joy of the self is infinite, ananda. Satyam jnanam anantam brahma. Anantam means infinite, limitless. Anandam brahma iti anandam brahmeti vyajanat. That divine presence is within us, each one of us, which is unconditionally present, whether we believe it in it or not, or accept it or not, it is present. That is our true nature. We are that. That's the message of Vedanta. So if we recognize our true nature, then our joy is limitless, infinite, Atmariti. We don't have to look for anything outside for happiness. We are, that self within provides infinite happiness. We will become that. Then we don't care for outside objects. Whether somebody, people praise us or blame us, or whether we get 10 rupees, $10 or $1 million, none of these things make any difference in our lives. We are already unconditionally, infinitely joyful all the time. Such a person is in Atmarati. Rati means enjoyment. Atmarati, he finds his enjoyment, his happiness in the self within. Atmatriptascha manavaha. We are studying verse number 17 in chapter 3. He is content with the self. There is no discontent. In the worldly life, there is discontent. No matter how much we have, there is something more that we can have. That lack of total fulfillment is always there. No matter how much money, wealth, etc. a person has, does not satisfy him, does not give him complete satisfaction. This is what Nachiketa said to the Lord Yama in the Kathopanishad. And Yama offered him all those things, large kingdom, queen, and music and dance and chariots and horses and elephants and a lot of wealth and a long life to enjoy all these things. One of the things Nachiketa says to Yama is, no sir, navittena tarpaniyo manushyaha. A man, a person, does not become completely contented, satisfied with money, no matter how much money you give. So this person, one who has performed all his actions, his or her actions as yajna, and enlarged his thinking to include the whole universe, such a person finds joy within. Selfishness is gone. He has recognized the divine presence within, and that is where the true, infinite, eternal, unconditional Ananda is, joy is. Atma triptasya manavaha, totally is fulfilled in the self within. Atmani eva santushtaha, same thing emphasized, finds total fulfillment, contentment, satisfaction in the self within, Atmani eva, in the self alone. For such a person, there is no need to go outside and do something to get more happiness. There is nothing that he can do or get that can enhance his happiness, which is already infinite. You can't add anything more to infinity to make it greater. Infinite happiness is already experiencing, therefore there is nothing outside that such a person has to do or to get to find more happiness. That is described in this verse number 17. Then such a person, tasya karyam na vidyate, there is nothing to be done. Such a person has become a kritakritya. Kritakritya is a term that comes later in the Gita. Kritakritya means one who has done everything that is required to be done. When a human being is born, he is required to achieve certain goals. Traditionally, we think of them as 4 goals: dharma, artha, kama, moksha, practice of righteousness, truthfulness, non-injury, etc. Dharma. Artha, achieve some material prosperity. It's necessary in the beginning stages to have some material prosperity. Poverty is not good. In the concluding instructions of a Gurukulam teacher, Taittiriya Upanishad, we studied this subject in several Sunday talks recently. The teacher tells the departing students, among other things, he says, Bhutyena pramaditavyam, kushalana pramaditavyam. You should not refrain from achieving prosperity and well-being. You should be well. Good health, good family, good job, and good feeling. Don't have to be miserable if you are religious. You should be joyful. Bhutyena pramaditavyam. You should be also prosperous. Material wealth is necessary. But those things are not the ultimate. Those are proximate goals. Until you reach the stage of illumination, those things are necessary. I remember one incident. This is a little bit of a digression, but I like to mention that one. Many years ago, I went to Portland Vedanta Society to see Swami Asheshanandiji Maharaj, disciple of Holy Mother, revered person. It is said he used to communicate with Holy Mother. So I went a couple of times, and he also came many times to Chicago where I was, Ganges. So one day I was there was a phone call from somebody. Swamiji took the phone, and I could hear what Swamiji was telling on the phone. From the conversation, I could gather that somebody, maybe a young man, on the other end of the telephone line. I didn't see him. I didn't hear what he said. Swamiji asked him, he wanted to join the ashrama. Swamiji asked him, do you have a job? It seems that person must have said no. Then Swamiji said, you should get a job first. He wanted to join the ashrama and stay there and become a monk. But Swamiji, this is what he said, you should get a job first. Not only getting a job. Swamiji stipulated, you should hold on to the same job for 2 years, at least 2 years. And then you should come here every now and then to attend our classes. If you can hold on to the same job for 2 years and work there, then I will consider his request for joining the ashrama and staying. That means, it seems Swamiji was saying that if you cannot succeed in the outside world, getting qualified, getting a job, holding on to the job, working with co-workers, learning to work with co-workers and other people, being successful in a job. Unless we have those abilities, you cannot succeed in spiritual life. Spiritual life is not the last resort for the incapable people. A person must be well qualified, strong, with a clean mind. Such a person can successfully lead a spiritual life. Those things are required. Then when we have all those things, then we should say, realize their temporary nature, undependable nature, conditional nature, and then say there is something higher, something greater. And that is when spiritual life begins. So here, tasya karyam na vidyate. For such a person, he has become fulfilled in worldly life. He has done whatever is required to be done to achieve the state of spiritual maturity, and there is nothing more to be done. He is completely fulfilled in the self within. Nothing more outside is required. Tasya karyam na vidyate. No more obligatory duties. Such a person will be active. He will not become idle. No, I have seen God, I will not do anything. He will not sit down like that. They will be active, more active than ordinary people. Look at Swami Vivekananda. He had Nirvikalpa Samadhi early in his life. He didn't have to do anything. He could be sitting there enjoying the bliss of the self all the time. Did he? He worked day and night, very hard, and not caring for his health. Why did he do that one? That we will study in the next couple of verses. Loka sangrahame vartham sampashyan kartumarhasi, Sri Krishna says in the Gita. Loka sangraha means for the well-being of the world. To lift other people up. First one should lift oneself up. Then when you have achieved the goal, then you can lift other people up. If I am myself struggling at the bottom, I can't lift anybody else. Get up. I have to achieve that status of total fulfillment, total selflessness. A person who has achieved that state, for such a person there is no obligatory duty. Everything is optional. If he likes, he can do. If he does not like, he need not do. Tasya karyam na vidyate. So that is the status that is our goal. Just to, verse number 17. Just to atmaritare vasyat atmatraptascha manavaha atmanyeva cha santushtaha tasya karyam na vidyate. For a person who takes delight solely in the self, who is content with the self, who finds satisfaction alone in the self, there is no obligatory duty that he is required to perform. For why there is no obligatory duty is explained in verse number 18. Why such a person has no obligation to do anything? He may, if he wants to. Why that happens is explained in verse number 18. So let us do verse number 18. Naiva tasya krite nartho na krite neha kaschana na chasya sarva bhuteshu kaschidharthavyapashrayah. Naiva tasya krite nartho na krite neha kaschana na chasya sarva bhuteshu kaschidharthavyapashrayah. Such a person has nothing to gain from work done or left undone. On no beings does he depend as regards any interest of his own. It means there is nothing that person gains by doing something. because everything is already been gained. Infinite joy, which cannot be in any way enhanced, maximum has been reached. So what is there outside to be done? He doesn't have to go and buy a suit, expensive suit to make it more happy, to make him more happy. No, that's not possible. He's already maximum happiness he has already reached. There is no such thing that he has to do to bring him more happiness. Na krte neha kaschana. If something is not done, that also does not cause him any more happiness or unhappiness. Nothing to be done, nothing to be refrained from doing. Sarva bhuteshu na kaschid artha vyapasi. He does not have to depend upon anybody or anything for fulfillment. He is already fulfilled. There is nothing that other people can do to make him happier. If there is an illiterate person, if you go and do pranam to him, do you think he will become happy? He will bless you. But he does not feel, 10 people came today, 100 people visited and did pranam to me, that does not make him happier. So there is no such thing. If nobody does any pranam to him, he does not feel bad also. Nobody came today to greet me, there is no such lack. Such a person is totally independent of external actions and objects. What other people think of him, they may think he is a fool. That does not make him unhappy. Other people may think he is the wisest person, praise him. That does not make him any happier than he already is. In the Song of Sannyasin, I have chanted this many times. Swamiji Vivekananda's Song of Sannyasin. This stanza is very nice. Hidden no more how body lives or goes, its task is done. Let karma float it down. Let one put garlands on, another kick this frame, say not. No praise or blame can be where praiser praised and blamer blamed are one. Thus be thou calm, Sannyasin bold, say Om Tat Sat Om. Somebody may praise him, that does not make him any happier than already he is. Somebody may blame him and give him trouble also, that does not make him unhappy at all. You may remember Sri Ramakrishna was once literally kicked by another jealous priest. Sri Ramakrishna was in a state of divine inebriation, partial samadhi. He was lying down. He was aware, but he was not fully aware. That state. And then another priest was there. That priest was very jealous of Sri Ramakrishna because everybody used to praise Sri Ramakrishna, show him respect. So he came and asked Sri Ramakrishna, what is it that you do that all the people praise you? Mathuranath Bishwas, owner of the temple, had great regard for Sri Ramakrishna. What do you do to make them all praise you? Sri Ramakrishna didn't reply. He could not reply. He was not fully aware. He knew someone was asking something. 2-3 times that man asked, Sri Ramakrishna could not reply. He was in a partial ecstatic mood. So that man became angry, was already jealous. So he kicked Sri Ramakrishna on the back and went away. It was really painful. It left a dark mark on Sri Ramakrishna's body on the back. That also didn't bother Sri Ramakrishna. He didn't even bother to tell anybody about it. For a long time it was not known. Then in the meantime what happened, that man did something else wrong and he was dismissed from his post. So Sri Ramakrishna did not become unhappy or become angry and curse him, though he was kicked by that other priest. So like that one, there is nothing that other people can do to make this person happy or unhappy. He is already in a state of unconditional happiness. Does not depend upon what other people think of him or do to him or do not do to him. Something that happens, something that does not happen. Nothing bothers such a person. Is totally, completely, independently, infinitely joyful for all time. It's not something that comes and goes. He is established in that joy of the self, Atmananda. So such a person is described in verse number 18. Naiva tasya kritenartho na kriteneha kaschana. Akrita means something that is not done. If something is not done, then this person does not become unhappy. For example, supposing in a family, every morning when a person wakes up, somebody, his wife or somebody brings a hot cup of coffee, bed coffee. So that person drinks and becomes very happy. So bringing that hot cup of coffee made him happy. One day that lady could not bring coffee, she was sick or something, or had to do something. Coffee did not come, he became unhappy. That is our present status. If something happens that we like, we become happy. If something that we like does not happen, we become unhappy. Therefore, for such a person, there is no such thing. Naivatasya kritena artha. Artha means object. There is nothing that any action brings more happiness to such a person. Akritena na kaschana. If something is not done, that also does not make him unhappy. Whether coffee comes or not, this person is independently, completely, totally happy all the time. Such a state of total independence on outside objects, outside events, is something that we all have to try to achieve. By the grace of God, in this life, we want to reach that stage. Right now, every small thing bothers us. If I am feeling good one day, I feel happy. If I am not feeling good one day, I feel unhappy. That is not really good. I have to be independently happy. Whether my body is well or ill, I should be happy inside, joyful. That state of independence is what is described in verse number 18. Nachasya sarvabhuteshu kasidartha vyapashrayah. On any other being, this person does not depend for his happiness. So 17 and 18 describe such people. Now, what is to be done? We have seen people who do all actions in a selfish way. We have seen people in the last two verses, 17 and 18, people who have reached that goal of total unselfishness. Such people described in 17 and 18 are totally unselfish. I want to emphasize one thing here. In his Karma Yoga lectures, Swamiji made a very remarkable statement, which I think is a Mahavakya for this age. You know, in the Upanishads, they have 4 Mahavakyas, Aham Brahmasmi, Tattvamasi, etc. But what Swamiji said, a similar statement in English, should be our Mahavakya for our life. What did he say? In Karma Yoga lecture, Swamiji said, unselfishness is God. Only 3 words. Unselfishness is God. Such a person described in 1718 is a totally unselfish person. Selfish means relating to body mind only, identifying with the body and mind. This is what I am, this is my property, it's not my property, this is my work, this is not my work. I am happy, I am happy, I am unhappy. That is selfishness. A person who has given up that narrow selfishness and expanded his personality to include all and everything, For such a person, he has reached God. God is total unselfishness. So such a person is described in 1718. Now question is, how can people like you and me become like that? I'm talking of people like me. There may be some enlightened people, they are not included here. They already reached the goal. How can ordinary people like you and me reach that stage of total, complete joy of the self, experience the joy of the self? How can we do that one? What is to be done? Only one instruction. Simple instruction. There is no complication. That is given in verse number 19. One simple instruction that we all can do, doable. It's not something very difficult. Because you are already doing part of it. We just have to give a fresh, new, different orientation to all our actions. That is all that we have to do. That is nicely explained in verse number 19. Very important key verse number 19. What we have to do. So far we have seen the ideal. Now how to reach the ideal. Practical instruction that everybody can do and have to do in our lives. Given in verse number 19. Key verse. Tasmadasaktas satatam karyam karma samachara asakto hyacharan karma paramapnoti purushaha. Very nice verse. Very important verse. Tasmadasaktas satatam karyam karma samachara asakto hyacharan karma paramapnoti purushaha. Purusha means a human being. Literally it means a man, but here in the present context, man, woman, both are included. Therefore means in the previous shlokas we studied the nature, characteristics of a person who has reached the goal of total unselfishness. Total unselfishness. A person has reached. For such a person, there is no obligation to do anything, because there is nothing that he does or does not do that can make him happier. He already reached the maximum happiness that one can reach. Infinite happiness. Ananda. So how can we become like that one? Therefore, if you want to become like that, karyam karma samachara. Samachara means perform. Karyam karma means all obligatory duties. Karya means something that has to be done. Karma means action. We all have certain action duties to be done. They may be different from person to person. They may vary from time to time, but duties are there all the time for every one of us. Your duty is something different from my duty, and my duty was yesterday different, today it is different. Same thing for you. But whatever happens to my duty at this moment, we have to perform that duty. First thing, we should not neglect our duty. We should not become kartavya bhrashta. Kartavya means duty. Bhrashta means one who fails to perform the duty. We have to perform our duty. Whatever is duty, that we have to do. Diligently, lovingly, nicely, in an unselfish way we have to do. How we have to do? One word is given here in this 19th verse. Asaktaha. Asakta means without attachment. Without attachment to karma, karma phala. To work on fruits of work. Only one word. Asaktaha karyam karma samachara. Perform all your required duties with detachment. This is a key word. Asakta, detachment. In the commentary, Shankara says, Asaktaha means sanga varjitaha. Free from attachment, sanga varjitaha. How to become free from attachment is a bigger topic. There are some things to be done to give up attachment to karma, karma phala. We will study all of that. It will come in the subsequent verses. the topic of detachment from karma phala is a very important and big topic. We'll just spend quite some time trying to understand how to perform action without attachment. There are a couple of different ways in which we can do that one. Some of it you already have studied. We will see that one. So the instruction here is in the first line of verse 19. Therefore, perform all your actions without attachment. Tasmad asakta satatam means incessantly, not sporadically. Today, very enthusiastic, we do everything nicely with great enthusiasm and zeal, energy, and next day slack down and take it easy and not do anything. That should not be. Every day, consistently, incessantly. Satatam means incessantly. Tasmad asakta satatam karyam karma samachara. Perform all your actions incessantly with detachment. That is the instruction. How to practice this detachment, we will study, try to understand. What happens if we do that, if we perform all our actions without attachment, is explained in the second line of this verse number 19. Asakto hyacharan karma paramapnoti purushaha. Purusha means a human being in this context. Paramapnoti, param means supreme. Asakta karma acharan, performing all actions with detachment. A person, purushaha paramapnoti, achieves the supreme goal of life. For human life, what is the supreme goal? Moksha, liberation. Dharma, artha, kama, moksha. These are the four goals. What is the supreme goal? Moksha, liberation. Param means liberation. Actually, Shankaracharya in the commentary translates param as moksha. A person reaches liberation by performing all actions without attachment. What can be simpler than that? To achieve liberation, you don't have to go to the forest, giving up family and job and children and everything. To achieve liberation, you don't have to do deep meditation for 12 hours a day, which you cannot do anyhow. How to reach liberation? Just doing your duty with detachment. What can be simpler than that? This is the power of karma yoga. By performing all our actions with detachment, asakta karma acharan, what happens? Purusha, a person, paramapnoti, achieves liberation. Param is translated as liberation in the commentary, Shankara's commentary. We achieve liberation. But there is a little bit of a stretch here, we can say. It does not happen so directly. There is a little bit of a qualifier, an additional condition. When we perform all our actions with detachment, with unselfishness, our mind becomes pure. Sattva shuddhi dvarena. In the commentary, Shankara says, Sattva shuddhi dvarena. Sattva means mind. Shuddhi means pure, purification. Dvara means through. Through the medium of mind becoming free from all blemishes, we achieve goal, the goal of moksha. So, performing karma as karma yoga without attachment and without worrying about the result, with success or failure, receiving both success and failure with equanimity. That has come before in the second chapter, verse 48. If you perform all your actions, what happens is mind becomes pure. Pure means free from selfishness, narrow-mindedness. Free from all blemishes such as lust, anger, greed, pride, jealousy, delusion, fear. All those things will go away. How? By performing all our actions as service, as offering, without selfishness. Then once the mind becomes pure, the obstruction to realization is removed. we experience the divine presence then itself. Now we have to understand it this way. God is present in all of us unconditionally all the time, right? That's why Vedanta says, you are that. Not only God is present, we are that divine ourselves. Aham Brahmasmi. I am that Brahman. Tattamasi, you are that Brahman. Now, what prevents me from experiencing it? If I am that, I should know that. If I am a president of a company, I should know I am a president of a company. I should experience it, that presidency. I am not experiencing God's presence within me right now. Right now, this moment, if you ask me, are you experiencing God within you? I have to say no. I am experiencing only my body and my mind. What is the obstruction? Why I am not experiencing God? If He is present now, I should be experiencing it. What's the problem? What's the obstruction? Impure mind. My mind right now is not totally free from selfishness and desires and unhappiness, happiness. My mind is all those blemishes. Once the mind becomes pure, free from all these blemishes of selfishness, anger, jealousy, pride, lust, etc., it becomes like a clean, clear sheet of glass. Now it is very opaque, does not allow me to see what is inside. God is inside, I am not able to see. Why? The mind becomes, is acting like a shield, concrete wall, not able to see through it. If the mind becomes pure by performing all actions as service and in an unselfish way, then it becomes transparent. No longer is it an obstruction. Then I can see God immediately. Oh, God was already there. All these years from beginning He was there. He has always been there. Only I was not aware of His presence. I was not able to experience His presence. That realization will come. That's why we call it realize. We realize that we were always that Satchidananda. We never were anything else other than that. We are now and we will always be that. The truth means all the time it must be true. So that truth we realize, we experience then when the mind becomes pure. What is the simplest way to make the mind pure? By doing all our work with a detachment. Other methods are there, meditation, some this Raja Yoga, Karma Yoga, Raja Yoga, Jnana Yoga, all those things are there to make the mind pure and reach the goal of liberation. But this is something that applicable to everybody because everybody is doing some action all the time. Is there anybody who is not doing anything at any time? You are all doing action. So, if since all actions which is being done anyhow is done without attachment, mind becomes pure. When mind becomes pure, we realize our divine nature, that is moksha. See, very simple. Spiritual life need not be complicated and difficult. The simplest way to reach realization is given in this verse number 19. Now all we have to understand is how to perform action without attachment. Actually, it has already been given to us, in this knowledge has been given to us in the second chapter. You have to go back and recapitulate how to perform actions without attachment. Where has it come, you remember? Second chapter, verse number 48, 47, 48, especially 48. We spent a lot of time studying that one. If you perform action in that way, mind becomes pure. Next step is realization of the self. We become knowers of the self. That is the goal of life. You have reached the goal of life. Nothing more to be done. You can still live in the body as Jivan Muktas. You can do some work to help other people, but nothing binding, nothing obligatory, nothing, no limitation. Now, the key question is, what is detachment? How to do it? How to perform actions with detachment? One sloka is there only. There are many slokas in the Gita which tell us how to practice detachment. We will study them as they come. But since we already have studied second chapter, I will like to go back a little bit to verse number 48 in chapter 2. There Sri Krishna has told us how to perform all actions without attachment. So I will chant the verse number 48 in second chapter. Yogastha kuru karmani sangam tyaktva dhananjaya siddhya siddhyo samo bhutva samatvam yoga uchyate. Two things to practice detachment. One is sangam tyaktva, giving up I and mind. Sangam means attachment. Attachment means I and mind. I and mind have to be reduced gradually and eliminated. It's all, devotee says, not I but thou, O Lord. Jnani says, I am not I, body, mind, I am the self, Atman. Either way, we have to give up the notion, narrow-minded notion that I am the body and the mind. In regard to work, how to do that one? Every action I do, how to give up I am only an instrument and I am a servant. I am doing the work. I is still there but given a lesser position. As a servant, as a devotee, as a child of God, as a caretaker, as a manager, as a servant, I do all this work. So that is to reduce the selfishness. Make the I a ripe I. As Sri Ramakrishna says, unripe I has to be converted into ripe I. What is unripe I? Kachami, oh, I am such a great person, I am the doer, I have to get the result of this work. I am the head, I am powerful, I have more knowledge, I have more money. That is Kachami, unripe I. That has to be converted into ripe I, Pakami, by simply changing our attitude about ourselves. Why am I? I am a humble person, I am a child of God, I am a devotee of God, I am an ordinary person, and whatever merit I have is due to God's grace, and I am doing it as an offering to Him, as His service, as His worship. That is detachment. Not difficult, just changing our thought. Work need not change. Whatever work you are doing every day, we continue to do the same work. Nothing changes. But what changes? My attitude towards work changes. That is in my control. I can change my attitude. I am a child of God, I am a servant of God. As a servant, I am doing all this out of love. I don't want anything from this. I only want His grace. I am doing it to please Him. Parameshwara Prityartham. In order to please the Lord, Parameshwara, Supreme Lord, I am doing this work. Not to get some benefit from it myself. Namama phalaya. Ishwaraya bhrityaiva sarvani karmani karayet. Shankara says in the commentary on another verse in the 3rd chapter. It will come later. This topic of detachment in action comes throughout this chapter and in subsequent chapters too. So we'll study this again and again. How to practice detachment in work. Second thing is, in 2nd chapter 48, second thing mentioned is siddhya siddhyo samo bhutva. When we do some work, we either succeed or we don't succeed. Or a mixture of success, failure comes. Anishtam ishtam mishram cha. Trividham karmana phalam. Later he says. When you do some work, we either succeed or we fail. Or usually some part of it succeeds, some part of my work fails. Whatever be the result, I remain unaffected after having done my best. Success, failure are not in my hands. They are in the Lord's hands. Other factors affect success and failure, which we'll study them later. Therefore, I remain calm whether my work succeeds or not. In any activity, whether it is in the matter of personal health, personal wealth, success in job, or success in bringing up children, I do my best and leave the rest. The rest is up to Him. Result is up to the Lord, not to me. Doing my part is my duty. Once it is done, I am free. What happens as a result is not my concern. If it is agreeable, I will accept it. If it is disagreeable, I will accept it. That detachment is the key to Karma Yoga. If you do all your work in that way, then what happens? Asakto hyacharan karma, coming back to 19, verse 19, second line. Paramapnoti purushaha. A person achieves, param means supreme goal, which is liberation. So we don't have much time. I will chant in next verse, verse number 20. This is easier to understand. Verse number 20, chapter 3. Karmanaiva hi samsiddhim asthita janakadayah lokasangrahamevapi sampashyan kartumarhasi. The word Lokasangraha has come again here. Lokasangraha has come again. Lokasangraha means serving the world. So, verse number 20, Karmanaiva hi samsiddhim asthita janakadayah lokasangrahamevapi sampashyan kartumarhasi. So, Sri Krishna is saying to Arjuna, in order to do some good to the world, lokasamgraha, karma kartumarhasi, you have to perform your action. Arjuna was saying, I don't want to fight because I don't want the kingdom, which will come at the cost of the lives of my relatives and friends. Sri Krishna says, even if you don't want the kingdom, you have to still do your duty to set an example to other people and to serve other people who are in need of your help by doing your duty. Doing one's own duty may not be for one's own benefit, but if it benefits other people, animals, plants and things, then we have to do that duty. May not be only for me, but for other people, to help other people. This topic of Lokasangraha is a very big and very interesting, important topic. We'll try to understand that one. Before we go more into this verse number 20, I want to draw your attention to one chapter, one article written by Swami Vivekananda in the Karma Yoga book. A small book separately published, Karma Yoga by Swami Vivekananda. It has 8 chapters in it. One chapter is especially important in that Karma Yoga book is called We Help Ourselves, Not the World. That's the title of the chapter. We help ourselves, not the world. In that chapter, Swami Vivekananda says, when we do some work, and if it helps other people, animals and plants and things, we should not feel proud. We should not become arrogant. I helped all these people. No. Who benefits? I do some good work in an unselfish way. Some other people will benefit from it. They are helped by it. Who benefits? We think he benefits, other people. Because I did this, he got benefit. Somebody didn't have food, I gave food, his hunger was satisfied. So he is the one who got the benefit. We think like that. Swamiji says, no. You benefit from that work. Apparently he does, because he was hungry. He didn't have food, you gave him food. And he ate the food, he became happy. And you think you helped him. Swamiji says, no. He has helped you. See, this is a very interesting point. Who helps whom? We think we help other people by doing something good to them. But actually, Swamiji says, you help yourself by doing good to other people. We help ourselves, not the world. Very nice. In title itself is so great. Please, I will request you to read that chapter in Karma Yoga book, Swamiji's Karma Yoga book. We help ourselves, not the world. There, the real meaning of Lokasangraha, serving the world, is explained very nicely. Swamiji says, when you do some good to somebody, don't expect that person to be thankful to you because you have done good to him. No, you should be thankful to the other person because he gave you an opportunity to serve him. By serving him, you have become unselfish. You have given up selfishness. What is the meaning of service? Giving or service means giving up attachment to that object or work. If I have $5 that I can afford in charity, I give $5 to charity, to some charitable organization or a poor person, and I think I have done him a great favor. No, who has done a favor to whom? That person who received your $5 has actually helped you to give up attachment to that $5. Giving up means attachment to that object. $5, it was mine, now it is his, so mine has gone away. I have given up the notion mine in regard to the $5. I no longer think it is mine. Once it is given, no longer mine. That my $5 feeling has gone away or should go away. When we give something to somebody, we give up attachment to that ownership of that object or service, whatever. If you serve somebody, we have become unselfish. We have become unselfish. If we keep on becoming more and more unselfish, when we reach the next limit, total unselfishness, what becomes? We become God. Unselfishness is God, Swamiji wrote. So, Lokasangraha means performing service to other beings who are in need of service with the idea of becoming unselfish, with the idea of giving up attachment. That is the goal of service. When we do that one, what happens? We become totally unselfish. We reach the goal of life, namely liberation. Many people have done this one. Swamiji himself. Here in the verse number 20 says, I'll chant verse number 20. Karmanaiva hi samsiddhim astita janakadayaha lokasangraha mevapi sampashyan kartumarhasi. Janaka and others achieved perfection through works alone. At least to promote the welfare of the world, you ought to do works. Here, some examples are given. Only one name, Janaka, is mentioned, but many other people, less well-known people than Janaka, have reached the goal of liberation by performing all karma as karma yoga without attachment and without worrying about the success or failure of that work. Karma, in the commentary, there is another name, Ashwapati, another king, and other people. Swami himself, the nearest example to us, who did all work as worship, as offering, is Swamiji himself. Swamiji himself is, he said one day, what good is a religion that does not wipe the widow's tears, that does not put a morsel of food in the mouth of a hungry child crying for food? What good religion is that? Doing all kinds of rituals and everything, and not caring a little bit about the hungry people, poor people, sick people, needy people who require our help. Not doing that. What good is that kind of religion? I don't believe in a religion which does not wipe the widow's tears or put a morsel of food in the mouth of a child, hungry child, crying child. That was Swamiji's notion of religion. Service, service, service all the time, without expecting anything in return. No praise. We do something good, we should not expect for admiration, praise and reward, recognition, publicity. No. The greatest people have passed away unbeknownst to human beings. They live in the shadow of fame. They don't seek fame or name, and they do everything for the sake of others, and they don't care for the outcome. They don't want the praise or blame or reward or recognition. Quietly they leave the scene after doing their work. So ordinary people seek recognition, publicity, fame, reward. When they do some small little bit of thing, give donation, they want you to put a plaque on the building. If such a donation was given by such and such a, no, such expectation of fame and return should not be there. Quietly we should do charity and service. What the right hand does or gives, the left hand need not know. Like that one. So by doing karma in this way, karmanaiva hi samsiddhim astita janakadaya, Janaka and others reached samsiddhi. Samsiddhi means moksha, as we saw before. Shankara translates samsiddhi as moksha. They reached moksha, liberation, by performing all actions as service, without attachment, without worrying about the result, whether success or failure, in a totally detached way, unselfish way, by performing all actions. Many people like Janaka and others achieved moksha, liberation. So we have to do the same thing. Lokasangrahamevapi sampashyan kartumarhasi. It is well known, made the commentary, Shankara's commentary on this verse. It is well known that wise Kshatriyas in the past sought perfection or liberation by means of work alone. Many kings like Janaka, Dasharatha, all those people, they did everything as service, serving the country, serving the subjects. And after performing their duties, they would return to the forest for pursuing Vanaprastha ashrama. That was a different lifestyle. So let us continue our study of this verse number 20, the topic of selfless action. How does it lead one to liberation? And if you have questions or comments, please let me know, and I will be happy to answer. And I shall now say the closing prayer. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah, Sarve Santu Niramayah, Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu, Ma Kaschid Dukkha Bhag Bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om, may all be happy, may all be free from afflictions, may all realize what is noble and auspicious, may no one be subject to misery. Om peace, may there be peace and joy in our hearts, may there be peace and harmony amongst all beings, and may there be peace everywhere in nature. Harihi Om Tat Sat. Sarvam Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu. Stay well and stay in touch. Thank you all very much. God bless us all. Thank you. Namaskar.